Good afternoon, class. Welcome back to SAT reading. And today we do have another passage for us to go over and to talk about. But before I give you the passage, we're going to take a look at some of the reading tips that we've been discussing before. So, with number one, it says to find the topic of the reading passage. Right? The topic, if you remember, is sort of the big picture idea. Right? And if you're thinking about an umbrella, right? And the topic in the umbrella is sort of like the big idea, the thing kind of covering you. Okay? So if you think back to like the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood, the topic of Little Red Riding Hood could be about safety. Okay, so that's sort of the big idea. Number two, where you find the scope. The scope is a bit narrower, and it's sort of like this more detailed part of the umbrella. Okay, in Little Red Riding Hood, the topic is safety, but the scope may be that children need to be safe around strangers. Okay, if you remember from the story, the little girl goes to her grandmother's house, and then and she notices like something totally wrong after talking to the big bad wolf walking through the forest, right? Which ultimately leads to some pretty nasty trouble. Okay? Well, number three, this is about the tone. Okay, this is the author's tone. This is kind of like what's the author's attitude towards what is he doing. Okay, so with tone, you want to think about maybe three important parts. Think about is it positive tone? Okay, if it's a study that you're reading about, is the author excited about the study? Does he want you to also believe what he believes about the study, that it's going to change these great and wonderful things? Okay? Or is the author more neutral? Right? Is this a study that has come out and the author just wants to tell you about it? Right? It's like a newspaper reporter who just is just telling you just the facts. This is what happened. This is where it happened, and this was the result. Neither positive, no happy indications or anything like that. And the opposite would be, of course, be negative. So negative tone simply just means that the author is not happy. Using the study analogy again, let's say that there's a new scientific research study and the author is highly critical. Right? You want to think about the tone because the tone gives you a heads up about even what the questions will be. Okay? It kind of lets you know what the author wants you to feel. So if you get a question on there that asks you about sort of like the general attitude or what was the author's main point on this sentence or this passage, if you already know the tone, then you kind of have a good idea about where the reading is going and it'll give you a better idea when you approach some questions. If you're running out of time and you already know that the author is really positive and the question's asking you about a specific passage, or just sort of a general attitude about the reading, then you kind of already know what to put down. The fourth part is signal words. Okay, now with signal words, what you want to be doing throughout your reading is to be underlining and circling words. Okay, it's really your preference. When you're doing the topic, maybe you want to underline that scope. Maybe you want to underline. Signal words also include things like in conclusion or in contrast or first or but, something like this, something that indicates to you like a heads up, right? It's a road sign through the passage, right? It's telling you what's coming up next, right? Is the author about to make his main point, or is he about to compare his point to another one? Okay, is he about to tell you several steps that were involved? Is he getting into some sort of contrast? Is he about to give you a heads up to watch out for? Maybe some criticism, something like that. Okay, that's what these signal words are for. And then, of course, the fifth step is to go back for detailed questions. Now, this is sort of a general thought about approaching the reading section, and what you want to be doing is you want to scan the reading, right? You're not reading for detail the first time. What you're doing is you're reading to get a broad sense of what the reading is about, some of the main ideas, the topic, the scope, the tone, all that sort of thing. You don't want to focus on the details right off the bat. Okay? If you disagree with the author, keep your opinions to yourself. There's no reason to get into these. These questions are going to ask you are not opinion questions. Okay? Maybe you know a lot about a topic, and your mind starts thinking about it. Don't do that. Just think about the main ideas of the reading as you go along. Focus on the details later as you actually get to the questions. So now let's take a look at the reading. I'll hand out a paper to each one of you. And don't forget, as you go along, try to be underlining and circling words and sentences that you see. All right, now that you've had a chance to read the passage, let's go over some of the answers. Okay, so right off the bat, we look at number 21. Okay, and it says, which choice best describes the overall structure of the passage? All right, this one should have been fairly simple. Okay, if you're already on the lookout for the topic and the scope, you can answer 21 pretty quickly, right? It's right there in the very first sentence. Okay, if you look at your paper, okay, the title is how sleep clears the brain. Okay, you should have recognized the title and know that this study is about sleep. Okay, and then you read the first sentence, and it says, a mouse study suggests that sleep helps restore the brain by flushing out toxins that build up during waking hours. Right? So right away, you know the topic is about a mouse study. Okay? Straightforward right there in the first sentence. Should have underlined it or circled it. Okay? So you look at your second sentence, and it says, results point to a potential new role for sleep in health and disease. Okay, so we go back and we look at our answer choices for number 21, and you look at the very first one. It says a possible connection is posited, and research investigating that connection is described. Okay, that sounds pretty good right off the bat, right? And A is the correct answer. All right, but maybe you didn't know what the word posited meant. Okay, but that's okay. You don't actually need to know what that word means. Right away. Okay, positive just means that they've asserted something or they've made some kind of claim. All right, but you do realize that A talks about a connection, talks about research investigating, and then it describes the research. Okay, so that's why A is correct. B, hypothesis is tested, practical results are indeterminate. Okay, indeterminate, great vocabulary word. Indeterminate just means that it's not defined. Right, in the passage, clearly they have defined what was the result of the research. Letter C, common conception is criticized, but is ultimately confirmed by research. No, they don't go into a common conception. This is about like a new study, as was told in the first paragraph. Letter D, a scientific question is raised. Okay, yes, but an experiment reveals there's no basis in fact. No, again, based on just the tone, the scope, and the topic, that the author is excited to tell you about the results of a study. Okay, so no basis in fact is the part that doesn't work here. So it is letter A is correct. Moving on to number 22, you look at the line build up. Well, what does this mean? So build up can mean a couple of different things, right? It can mean to increase. So maybe you want to quickly look for some words that look like increase. Okay, A is increase. Improve, not quite. Advertise, definitely not. So right away, cross off C. Okay. You can go back and look at the passage itself and try to insert these vocabulary words. So think about boost and improve, and you go back to the sentence. Flushing out toxins that boost during waking hours. Okay, maybe. So keep that one around. Or flushing out toxins that improve during waking hours. Now, toxins don't improve. Toxins are a bad thing, right? Think about the word toxic, right? It's something negative. So you can cross off B and C. So then you've got A and D. And D is accumulate, right? We know accumulate basically means to like build up. Right, so accumulation. If you're accumulating a lot of money, then you're a wealthy person, right? So now we've got A and D, and we've already drawn a distinction between A and D. You don't build up the way you do with boost, so that one doesn't work. So letter D is the correct answer for number 22. Looking at number 23, it says which choice best describes the function of the second paragraph. Okay, what you're going to want to do for this one is you have already read the first paragraph and you know it's sort of highlighting the topic and the scope. So you know how you can reread the first paragraph, or you can reread the third paragraph as well. So to put it into context if you don't remember right away, or you can just go straight to the second paragraph and take a look at it. The answer for number 23 is B. It outlines the background about understanding of sleep's purpose. Okay, so again, if you had trouble with that one, just read the paragraph right before and right afterwards to give you some context of how paragraph 2 actually fits into the passage. All right, so number 24, according to passage, the brain's glymphatic system. Okay. All right. So glymphatic system. All right. So maybe this was one of the signal words. Maybe this was an important vocabulary term that you circled right away. Okay. But maybe it wasn't. Okay. And that's okay too. What you can do is you can quickly go back to the text. You scan for the word glymphatic. Okay. You look, and it appears right there in line 19 and 20 and 21. Okay, so here you're going to want to underline the word real fast, read the sentence before, read the sentence afterwards, get a good idea of what it is, and 24 should tell you that the answer is D. It is partly responsible for clearing beta amyloid from the brain. Okay, 25. Again, it's also a question about the one we just read. So, boom, perfect, easy. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay, right away we know the answer is not C and D because we found the answer 24, so we know right where it is. We take a look at our answer choices. What you want to do is you want to go back to the passage, make sure you reread those lines to where you get the exact definition of what it is. Okay, you take a look. All right, and then you realize it's letter B, lines 21 to 23. So moving on, you have question number 26, the statement in lines 26 to 29. Right away, your mind should be thinking, okay, I need to go back to those lines, right? I wasn't reading for detail that much right away, so I go back to them. And with 26, I reread those lines, and I get letter D. It states the subject of an investigation. Okay, for that right there, you don't need to read the sentence before, and you don't need to read the sentence afterwards. You just focus on that one, those particular lines that they want you to look at. 26, 29. You read it, you think about it, you use a process of elimination, and you choose letter D. Okay. Moving on, you look at question number 27. It says, as used in line number 38, unconscious most nearly means. All right, so again, it's a good vocabulary word, unconscious. Maybe you know the prefix un means not. Maybe you know conscious means awake. So unconscious, not awake. Okay, then you look at answer choices. Maybe you got D right away, you knew it was asleep. All right, maybe you don't know that. Okay, maybe for some reason your brain's just not, firing on all cylinders right away. So then you go back, you find line 38, you read the word in context, think about it, you still don't know, then you can plug in each one of these words. Reflexive, no. Reflex, no, doesn't work here. Inanimate, okay, another great vocabulary word, but this is mostly relating to objects. An inanimate object is just something that doesn't have life, right? It's not animated. Okay? Ignorant means, of course, you don't know. So D, asleep, best works, not awake, asleep. Number 28, it says the author indicates that one way that Nedergaard's research team tested their hypothesis about the glymphatic system was to what? Okay, now this is a bit of a tricky one. Okay, so you've already circled or underlined glymphatic system. So what then you're going to want to do is to go back, find those passages. Okay, maybe you don't find it right away in those lines. You may have to read a little bit more. Maybe there was some other signal words like first that will give you an indication of what's going on. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to use a process of elimination, and that'll narrow it down to letter C. Record the difference between the clearance of injected beta amyloid in sleeping mice and that of mice that were awake. Okay, so this one's a tough one. This one's going to be one of those that's going to take a little bit more time. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're a native speaker or not. You need to kind of go back and look at those passages. Unless you have a really good memory, um, then you may not remember exactly how that was tested. Okay, so this is one of those that's definitely a tougher question because it requires more reading for detail, and it's going to require you to kind of connect things in a way that some of these other questions don't. That's why it's important to be really good at your vocabulary, so you get that low-hanging fruit and you get those easy questions really fast. You can move on to a tough one like 28. Fortunately, once you figure out 28, it goes right into 29, and bango, you get right to C, lines 48 to 50. Okay, so 28 is really like a two-part question. Okay, it's tell me the answer, and then where did you find it? Where's your evidence? Okay, so 28 was C, and 29 was also C. In the last one, number 30, the author most likely cites Nedergaard's comment about Alzheimer's disease in order to what? Okay, this one goes back into like the tone, right? So if we remember the tone, the overall tone of the passage here was quite positive, and he was kind of excited to tell us about this research study that kind of blows away some of the prior understanding about sleep. And he uses the quote nicely there at the end of the passage. And you should have gotten letter D, indicates the potential for her research to develop treatments for certain illnesses. Okay? Again, some of these questions are tougher than others, and you want to try to get those easy questions quickly. Some of that stuff is just you got to know the definitions. Okay? If you get in trouble, use a couple of the tactics that we've talked about here. And with this SAT reading, oftentimes the more difficult questions are more like a two-parter, like 28 and 29. It's reading, it's comprehension, it's connecting ideas, and then showing um, the test makers that you know the evidence of how you got there. It wasn't just a lucky guess. All right, so I'll talk to you guys later. Good class today. Thank you.